right, welcome to AI FISEC today, where we're embarking on a thrilling journey to the intersection of artificial intelligence and the physical security industry. I'm very excited for our guest today, Jonathan Antar, who is going to be talking to us about advancing AI security with sensors. Hey, Jonathan, how are you? Welcome to the podcast.
I'm doing great, Don. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for hopping on. So in normal fashion, we love to start off by just you introducing yourself to the audience and get to know who Jonathan is a little more, and then we'll go from there.
Great, yeah. So I'm about 15 years in the industry. Started with an integrator, kind of got my feet wet running cable, and just being an installer and doing all that work, and then project management. But my background's in architecture, and I am a technologist just by my the direction my brain goes. And so I very quickly started working with all the different technologies in the industry and moved over to the manufacturing side. And so I've been working now a lot with the IoT sensor world, and it really is something that is so intriguing and interesting and very different from where I started with cameras and access control and intrusion systems. So it's really just been a great journey to get where I am right now. And I'm a hockey player by birth, right? I coach it now. I teach it. I work with my son. I coach his team. I still play at the ripe young age of 41, and that's what keeps me going there. And got my family here in Texas, and we're just living a great life.
Nice. I'm assuming, is that the one fun fact about you, or do you have another?
That is my one fun fact. Yeah, I'm still playing hockey at 41 and coaching, and it's been a dream of mine since I was a kid to coach my son and play hockey with him one day. So I'm working on that. I got a couple more years until he's ready to be on the same team as me.
And I wonder, when you're in work and in hockey life, if there's some business synergies we can all learn from hockey.
Yeah,
some life lessons. Yeah,
there is, right. You've got that team mentality. You're teaching this long plan towards a goal of them understanding the whole game. So, when they start off, they really just know very little. And it's kind of like you're growing the people you're working with to have that knowledge that you've gained in the industry and teach them all of that. And it's cool to see the blend of all of it. Yeah.
It also knocks you on your ass too a little bit once in a while, right?
Oh, man, you get sore. It hurts more now than it ever did.
It's awesome, man. Yeah. Well, thank you for that. So, so let's get into the topic. So the topic again is advancing AI security with sensors. Super interesting. We've had some other guests on the podcast that have talked about sensor AI data, kind of as a conglomerate with a lot of other things, but nothing really just focused on this topic. So I'm really interested to hear what you have to say. And really interested to learn something new today. So I'll pass it to you.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, the industry has definitely had a lot of maturity and growth over the years. You had the invention of the IP camera in 1996, right? And then, so there was such a great evolution of the visual sensory data that we were getting and the evolution of how we use that data and analyze that data, through different surveillance platforms and analytical platforms. And it was a lot of visual, right? And so over time, that kind of matured and grew a lot. And what started to happen was, all right, what about all these areas where we can't put cameras? Areas of privacy, bathrooms, locker rooms, classrooms, office spaces where maybe the customer doesn't want that visual in their space because they want that element of privacy still. Mm-hmm. But what else can we do in those types of spaces? And IoT devices really started to take that place because you've got your eyes like a camera, but you have so many other senses that make up what the human body is, and the human body can be in a space and tell that something's wrong there, right? Mm-hmm. And it uses visual a lot, but it also can use a lot of those other senses. If you were to go into a space and close your eyes and things were going wrong in that space, you could probably tell, right? Using your ears, using your nose, odd smell, loud sounds, vibrations, right? If an earthquake started to happen, or whatever, you could tell something going wrong in a space using more than your eyes. And that's what a lot of these other sensors bring to the table. It's the other senses that you may not have thought to use in AI. And now you feed all of that data into a platform that can analyze all of what these sensors bring to the table. It's so much more information than we ever had before. You were looking at just motion, or analytics on if it could sense that a fire was there. But there are a lot of other ways to detect that a fire is starting to occur, or equipment is starting to burn up, or there's a fight happening, or whatever it may be, right? Arguments or gunshots, right? So audio sensors, chemical and air quality. And so when you bring all these sensors together, now it's time to understand how else can we tell what's going on in this environment, and bring that validation of the information back to these security operations centers, and respond to them accordingly. So.
Yeah, there's definitely something to be said if you have artificial intelligence for IoT devices that we are in that business of, that it's a collective amount that makes it what artificial intelligence could be, right? If it's a replacement for people, you're using all senses, not just visual. And there's a lot of fixation on the visual, right, in our industry. But what about, like you said, I mean, sound, and something smells different, right? Like I think you're doing vape detection, right? If there's some aspect of what that's picking up, right? And I think that's super interesting, because I wonder that stitching then creates an understanding of space and what's happening in space at any given time. Because video, I could imagine there's a lot more limitations when it comes to video, because video is very specific. It needs NVRs, storage. It needs a lot of data pull through, right? Whereas I'd imagine sensors might have a singular purpose in this life, or maybe a few, that detect certain things that probably need a lot less bandwidth or pull through of data, that many of them could tell a story by themselves almost without video. And so I don't know. I mean, what are your thoughts about that? Is that something that you guys are working on, or just in general, just what your thoughts are?
Sure. And so there's different ways that you can attack this, right? You can find 10 off-the-shelf sensors that tell you what's going on in the environment, or you can find like multi-sensoral devices that, one of our products is a multi-sensor, right? And so what that does is, with a single device, you're getting 15 sensors loaded into one unit over a single Ethernet cable, and that is delivering, things like particulate, because a lot of things create particulate. Smoking and vaping, that's a problem for a lot of people in a lot of areas. Creates particulate. When you're talking about using narcotics, right? When you combust a narcotic, something like smoking something, right? We can detect something like that occurring. Or, spray paintings, people tagging in rooms and things like that, introducing chemicals. Even just too many people in a space, they bring a lot of carbon dioxide to a particular space. And so when you look at the data, it provides so much more value than even security, because you've got all the environmental concerns that now exist. COVID changed the game. It went from everybody was so concerned with, just things happening like smoking in the bathroom and all that. Now they're concerned with the health and the spread of infectious disease in these buildings. And so these same sensors provide value on both sides of the fence. And once you connect it into building automation systems, you can remediate all the health concern issues, raising of carbon dioxide, right, where they're rebreathing other people's air, particulate, which carries viruses, right? So these are really important factors. They clean differently in these particular spaces now, a lot more chemicals and a higher frequency, and you don't want to be breathing that in. So you need to get that air out once you introduce these chemicals, and replace it with clean air and filter it, right? And so, you can actually have a secondary value to all these sensors on top of the security, and provide a very beneficial health benefit here. And so multi-sensors do a lot of that. You want motion, bringing things like panic buttons that can connect to these things, because you can do Bluetooth connectivity or LoRaWAN, even just calling out for help. audio sensors can do things like if I say help, emergency, right? I just
Emergency declared.
told my
Security
device,
notified.
and my device is going off over here.
I was not playing at all. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Oh, did you hear it?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So,
Nice.
yeah, I called for help. Maybe I was being bullied, and I was the target of bullying. And
Mhm.
so part of the plan for me as that student who was being targeted by bullying was they gave me a special keyword that I could use if I was uncomfortable in a situation and I needed to call for help. And I'm in an area where nobody could hear me, right? And so that goes right to the security operations, and they can respond immediately.
So help me understand where the AI piece comes in, because is it that
Yeah.
it's almost, I think of, so for example, on video I get, so in convolutional neural networks, which is what captures video data, it's basically saying I need a picture of a thing, and that thing may be positioned in many different ways, right? And I'm wondering if that's the same way here, meaning, so if I'm picking up on a vape, I need different types of vapor, right? Maybe in different
Right.
positions in the sensor, and then I classify that thing, right? With, so help me maybe understand what's the AI tech
The
behind that.
AI piece is important, yeah. And so, us as an organization, we have the big data on vaping, on a lot of the event types that we've created. Okay, so we've got the raw sensory information behind it. And
Mhm.
what you can do is you can use AI to do predictive algorithms on what vaping looks like in different scenarios, because it's never the same every time.
Right.
Right. And so when you've got validated data and invalidated data, you can apply your AI algorithms to actually sift through all that data and provide back to our cloud, or even directly to our edge device,
Right.
what the most current um, it's hard to explain it, the most current algorithms should look like, right?
Mhm.
How should we be looking for false positivity and screening that out? How should we be classifying different event types?
Mhm.
Because it starts off with just vape, but there's smoking,
Mhm.
there's heat not burn, which is something very new that the US is
Right.
not familiar with yet. But if you go over to Europe, and to anywhere in the EMEA regions, right? So Europe, Arabic regions, they're going to have the heat not burn products, and it's trying to come here. There's some issues where they're
Right.
fighting each other to get it over here, but it's coming. There's no way it's going to be stopped in the long run. And so the AI predictive models will be able to actually identify what those different complex algorithms, as they adapt over time, will continue to look like. Because the vape devices always started off as, you had the Juul device, and then they keep adding different chemicals in and changing their compositions. And so you've got to stay current on what's in them now and what they're changing to and what they
Mhm.
were, right? In order to understand how to get rid of those false positives and actually capture the true events. And that's where we are actually using AI to improve our algorithms. We're staying a step ahead of kind of what everybody else is doing, because most of them are kind of just baseline levels. They look for maybe particulate. Maybe they look
Mhm.
for a certain chemical. You hit a line, you classify it. But we've gotten significantly further than that with our AI algorithms now.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really interesting. I think, so is it, so maybe make sure I understand or clarify. So on the AI side, do you have some on edge and on a cloud or on-prem? So there's two opportunities for it to understand
Yeah,
what
I
it
can explain
is,
that.
or yeah.
Yeah, and so the edge device captures the raw data and we can feed it to the cloud. The
Mm.
cloud is where we get the big data, but having that big data and feeding that into our AI engines for the modeling allows us to, in every one of our firmware updates, improve the algorithms on the edge devices.
Mm. Yeah.
So you can feed it, you can make the adjustments live in the cloud, and you can make the adjustments in your incremental firmware updates in the edge device. So we kind of have an advantage because we've got both, right? We actually have edge intelligence in the Halo Smart Sensor, right?
Mhm.
And so we've got the ability to do local analysis of what's occurring. We don't necessarily need that internet connection, which a lot of people don't want, right? They want that privacy. They want to keep the data local.
Mhm.
And so, but with the big data in the cloud, we're able to improve those algorithms frequently. And as things change, and they have changed because they're
Mm-hmm.
putting different things into, I mean, you can bring these vape devices home and fill it with whatever you want,
Mm-hmm.
right? They're putting fentanyl in them. They're putting
Mm.
vape, THC in them, right? So they're putting other chemicals to get high in them. And so we can actually learn what the adapted new models should look like by collecting that data on the back end.
Yeah, it's I'm for anyone that knows me, I'm like a huge advocate of cloud, and I think,
Yeah.
and teach its own, right? I mean, I'm always what's the right fit for to solve the problem, but I can't fathom how advanced AI solutions, generative and whatever is next, whether it's iterative, whatever the next version of that would be, especially as we move towards a quantum world and everything. How in the hell that's going to live in an on-prem solution, especially something that the majority of the customers can afford? Because I feel like it does make sense to have a deep learning on the edge, but then to aggregate that into a source where it normally needs a lot of compute. And there's been a lot happening in the news with this AI stuff. It changes on a bi-weekly basis, and like even like Google released Gemini, which is their new generative LLM, and they came out with a version of a nano version that will live on the Pixel 8, but we don't know what that's going to do. And so, is there an aspect that it could go down to the edge and on-prem, and it's affordable? I guess, but I don't know. I'm wondering, like, what's your perception, or what's your personal perception on that, right? I mean, do we see a world where that aggregation of the more complex versions of deep learning are going to live in an on-prem solution, or is it going to live in a cloud?
I think the cloud is where it has to live because the on-prem solution is only going to collect data for a localized environment. And that has value for that customer, for that particular
Mm-hmm.
user, right, of the product.
Mm-hmm.
But what you're not getting is the big changes that are occurring in the industry that you've got to account for. So as different products come out, right, and we'll talk about vape specifically, right?
Mm-hmm.
Although we do apply this everywhere into
Right.
all of the different event types that we've got, but vape specifically has changed a lot over time. They're putting different things in it, and so that aggregated data in the cloud is really what allows us to make the edge devices more potent and powerful, and make those adjustments over time. I don't know that there's enough data points in a single localized device for the AI to have the value, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's only learning so much with so many events, and especially once you start becoming effective, the
Mm-hmm.
events go down, right? You're
Mm-hmm.
starting to solve the problem, and
Mm-hmm.
now there aren't so
Mm-hmm.
many events to collect data from. You may
Mm-hmm.
start off real strong,
Mm-hmm.
and then you're fixing a problem, really.
Mm-hmm.
And so you hope you are, right? If you're not, then your product really isn't working,
Yeah, that's a valid point, right? So if I
right?
want to reduce vaping in schools, and this is helping me understand that, and I'm targeting it, I've been able to reduce it by X amount, we're solving the problem over time. And
Yeah,
and I feel, but it's almost like repeat offenders. I mean, criminals they're never going to stop. So we'll
it's
always have a
true.
reason to
Yeah.
sell all this stuff that we're in. I feel like to some degree. And
Well,
so I don't know if there's a place of absolute zero with that, but I do think that does make sense. Yeah, as you were
I do
saying.
want to touch on a point about that. So you're right that the offenders don't stop, right? And a lot of times it's an addiction or whatever it may be, because um, there's different things in there to keep you coming back for it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so what's nicotine in the vape is a big deal. That's what keeps them coming back for it. And
Mm-hmm.
so part of the analytics that need to exist behind it are predictive of where it's going to be happening, right? Or predictive of when it's going to be happening. And
Right.
those are some of the analytics that we can provide as well. So we heat map where it's happening and when it's happening, what day of the week, the time of the day, and what locations. And we can look at trending over periods of time and give somebody with very limited staff the ability to be predictive in their responses and be there right when it's going to happen. And then as that shifts to new locations and the behavior migrates somewhere else, they can see that pattern shift as it's happening and be alongside of it to mitigate it, right? And so that's another way to utilize that data because, yeah, the events and how we analyze the data and detect the data is one side of the intelligence, but the other side is the behavioral response, how
Hmm.
we're going to be there to actually mitigate the problem as a security force, right? And so that's a whole other side that provides tremendous value, and that's in the cloud because you have to aggregate all of the devices in order to accomplish that, right? You're not going to gain that in a single device's set of data points.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, you know, the, the thought about, so for, when you think about AI and it travels through, let's say, neural network, and it travels from input to its middle point of working through the data to its output. There's this forward and backward propagation that happens, which uses a ton of potential resources depending on what it is that it needs to do. And what it seems like what y'all are doing is, with maybe not, yes, you're obviously doing this stuff that I just described within the background of AI, but you're also telling a story. You're combing things forward and backward and helping customers understand what's happening in their environment through these various devices, which is really fascinating. And I think one of the things we talked about in an earlier podcast was that to take from the normal guns, guards, and gates, and we want to save and protect lives, yes, we obviously are here for that, you know, but to tell another story, right? To be able to complement these already security deployed devices is highly valuable for clients. It seems like you're doing that already, or you have
Yeah,
been doing it for a long time.
we're an open platform, right? So we're going to work. We play nice with everybody, right? We
Hmm.
work with all of the the big VMS products out there,
Hmm.
access control products, building automation products, cloud
Hmm.
products, right? And so we have a number of different delivery mechanics for the
Hmm.
information that they need. But we're also connecting with verification, right? So you have events that occur in a timeline, and then we can bookmark those events with corresponding visual devices, visual cameras outside of those spaces to see who's coming in and out on those same timelines, right? So we're
Hmm.
going to be able to deliver confirmation of the events and the perpetrators of the events and ease of forensic research on the events. And so it's kind of, you add that into that extra data and the heat mapping that you're getting. And now you've got a very complete solution to some really big problems out there.
Where do you see most of this getting deployed at? Like what most customers are, obviously I can see a ton of use cases in my mind, right? But where are you seeing
Yeah.
maybe top three or four, and why?
Yeah. So, I mean, top one's always going to be your K-12 bathrooms, right? That's where they're just losing their minds trying to keep these kids safe and trying to let the parents know that we're doing everything we can to protect these children, right? That's probably your number one. But I think one of the really big spaces right now is like public housing, because this is an area where you can't put any type of visual equipment, and yet there's a lot of things that are going on in these environments, and you've got a lot of people living in a very tight space, apartments very, very close to each other. And so you've got safety concerns there. You've got overpopulation in some of them, right? Subletting out to other people, subletting out to a lot of people in one particular space. You've got drug use that's happening in there. I mean, even people passing away inside of a space, nobody knowing that that's happened for a long period of time. These are things that we can detect, right? That somebody is, no longer alive in a space, and or that something has happened to them. Maybe they've fallen and they can call for help, right? So it's not just about capturing the bad things that they're doing, but it's also providing another safety net for them inside their spaces. Early warning of smoke, right, or loud noises and aggressive behavior occurring in these spaces. So there's a lot of different event types that can apply into an environment like a public housing environment. And then hospitality is another one. Quality of air, quality of your experience there, right? The ability to even use some of these keyword phrases to ask for services, right? And so there's different ways that you can use the data that's being collected. Let them know that you're in an environment that's got low risk of transmission of infection, super high quality air, right? And that's important to people. When you go into a space, you want a good night's rest, right? You want to know that you're breathing good air. It's a concern in the commercial environments that they're going back to work. Get people out of their homes and back into the office spaces, but they're concerned about air quality in these spaces now. They never were before as much, but we can deliver that and connect it with the building automation system, remediate each one of these issues on the fly live.
Jonathan, is this coming from, I know you mentioned earlier that you have devices maybe that does one thing and some that do multiple. Is this coming from like a long series of different products, or is this kind of focused on maybe a few key flagship ones that are doing all this?
Yeah, so I mean, our Halo smart sensor, it got mad at me because I'm tampering with it, right? So that's one thing. You touch it and it lets you know. But yeah, I mean, that's all in here, right? It's all in one device. We can do all that there. And then we have the ability to connect external sensors to meet the needs of other customers if the sensor that you need isn't in here, right? So we can actually take a number of different sensor types and connect it to it, whether it be Bluetooth, LoRaWAN, RS-45. There's a number of different ways to connect sensors to it. And so we can meet the needs of a very wide spectrum of markets.
You know, I'd imagine there's probably no end to customer stories how this shapes up for you guys. Because I find that, like, you know, video is, you know, it's like you say, like a picture can say 1,000 words and a video could probably say a lot more than that. And I start to think about these sensors, and I've never really spent that much time thinking about sensors, honestly, up until this conversation. And it's fascinating to me because I think about sensors, I go back into my history of intrusion, right? And what
Right.
intrusion was
Yeah.
doing. And that was a lot of attention on the sensor data, but not so much on this side of what it's able to pick up. I'm super. So what's next? What do you feel like is next in this space that you're in?
Right. And so we actually have a new product coming out called it's Sentry ERS. It's very new to the marketplace. And so it's got the core and guts of what the Halo smart sensor has, but then add a quick communication device, right? And so it can do the audio analytics that you need, the call for help, the air quality, right? But you can also use it for a lockdown. You can actually grab the mobile quick comm, like a phone-like device, right out of it and run with it and feed that data back into a command center. And all of them throughout a building can be feeding data into that command center with that same type of, like, remember the whole PSIN thing, right? Where all the information's coming in, and then you've got, how do I handle these events? And you can actually manage a whole event right through these Sentry devices. Start a lockdown, alert the whole staff, get information to the police immediately with direct communications, send picture and video live as it's happening, right? So it becomes another point of data being fed into a system to give you that situational awareness in an event. But now we're adding video back into it, right? So, but video on the fly, not just video of a mounted device. So you're seeing what's happening from the eyes, essentially, of the person reporting it. That's kind of something new that's out just now.
Which I'd imagine contributes to your ability to tell the full story.
Yeah. We're giving another piece that was never there. You know, you always had like the blue light systems outside where you just hit the button and talk to them.
Right.
This is like that on steroids, because now you're getting mobile video along with, you know, what event type am I experiencing? Is it just a fight? Do I need a lockdown? I can push the button right on the unit, or just grab the quick comm and run. Right. I can go hide somewhere and be locked in a closet safely away from the perpetrator while feeding information, data, and potentially video right now to the command.
Yeah, no, that's super interesting. So I know we're getting towards the end, and I wanted to, in normal fashion, I wanted to have you tell the audience something that you're working on that you're really excited about, and then also where they can find you, where they can connect with you.
Great, yeah. So the new thing we're working on is that Sentry ERS. I kind of spilled the beans a little bit early. That's that's our new product that's out now, and you know, I talked a little bit about what that can do. It's everybody's screaming for it right now, so we have it going out to distribution very soon, and so everybody will be able to get that. and it's really like a blue light system mixed with mobile communications and video. And where you can find us. So we are at IPVideocorp.com. That's the place to get us. That's our general website where you can see all of our products. Or if you're specific about Halo, we have halodetect.com. Also a great site, super informative, lots of videos, case studies, how the product works, how you can use it. It's great information on there.